Title: Carried by the Wind. Written by Arya. Back during the Caribbean's rule over Old Mondstadt, the Wind Walls kept not only its inhabitant in, but others. Such was its strength, which many a citizen had complained over in their hearts, unbroachable by those from the outside. There was little to be done about that, however, and the people of Old Mondstadt took it with the same bitterness they did their tyrant god's rule. Any talks of rebellion had to be stifled quickly, lest their animo Archon hear and eradicate any threat to his rule. Kind as he purported himself to be, he would accept no form of treason, nor the simple thought of it, and it was best to be alive to rue one's lack of freedom than to die wanting for it. That was what many thought, at least, but not everyone. There was a bard with dreams of seeing the world beyond the walls. Just like every story needed their hero and their martyr, sometimes both combined. The bard happened to be a combination of all three: a storyteller, a young hero, and a martyr. But such thing would only come up later, and the little wind spirit had no such foresight. The wind spirit was a slight little thing with not a name nor voice to it. No bigger than a thumb, its consciousness was a small little pinprick of light, shaped into a cute button-sized sprite. It didn't have very much capacity for thought at first, but it was learning bit by bit, memory by memory. It didn't have much capacity for interests either, but it loved the bard's singing, and that was enough. That and the wind spirit understood the want for freedom. Perhaps not how to achieve such a thing, but the desire was there. Alongside a desire to help its friend, the bard had been making slow plans with that lover of the tyrant god and the night, whispering between slight fingers and tilted ears. That was not really the point, though. The point was there had been plans in motion, slow as they were, and between then and there, some new rumor emerged. This one was spoken between few, whispered among those in back alley, and nowhere in daylight. The people of Old Mondstadt had great capacity for hurting others, but even then they understood when to keep silent and when to not. There were words strung along of some traveler who hadn't been seen before. Someone who may have potentially breached the wind walls and have made it inside Old Mondstadt. This was impossible, of course, considering how fiercely the Caribbean guarded his territory. But that didn't make the rumors stop anyway. Always sitting at the bar counters, drinking with their face hidden by their hood, always paying a little more than necessary. On one of those nights, the little wind spirit traveled along the roads of Old Mondstadt, passing through every bar on the way. Even under the thumb of the Caribbean, these bars, few and far between, had their lights on when nothing but the moon illuminated the streets, even though the haze of wind blocking the city away. It was by this that the wind spirit could flutter through and look for a clothed figure sitting at the bar counter alone. It was on its fifth try that it did indeed find such a someone, nursing a glass and swirling it under the lights which illuminated all but their face. The wind spirit flew closer, and while it didn't have mind reading nor clairvoyance, it could understand that the person in front of it wasn't quite human. Humans had an altogether different air about them, one that this person lacked. Her hand swirled the drink in hand before taking a sip. "Excuse me, bartender? Could I get a second glass?" The bartender obliged and slid the drink across the table. The stranger picked it up and set it at a seat beside her. "That one's for you. You were looking for me, right?" There was no one else but the wind spirit. Slowly, it flew closer before it hovered just beside her. Before the drink she had offered, she took another sip at her own leisure, face still hidden away before she set her glass down. "I have to admit, It's been a while since I've seen one of your kind. There must be some reason you've come to find me, right? Hmm. Go ahead and ask. I don't bite. The wind spirit couldn't exactly talk, but it was finding that the person in front of it was increasingly extraordinary, who batted not an eye at its form nor seemed to have any trouble understanding its purpose, even without any spoken words. She drank as she hummed in affirmation here and there, tracing her finger over the rim of the glass. I understand. That's quite a bold plan you have there with your friends, you said. Hmm, interesting. But you shouldn't just approach people out of nowhere to tell them this. I could be a very bad person, you know? It didn't feel like she was. She sat there, nursing her drink, languidly listening to the wordless messages the wind spirit wanted to convey. There was also something to be said about humans, who, no matter how well practiced nor skilled they were, couldn't hide their true feelings, especially not from a non human. The wind spirit knew just enough to understand who was trustworthy and who wasn't, and the woman in front of it wouldn't harm a thing. All right, she said, and there seemed to be a laugh dancing along her words, trailing into the chattering in the background. Well, I was only planning to look around in the first place, but I suppose if you've come to me yourself, I should help you and those friends of yours. Is that what you wanted from me? Evidently, whatever she received from the little wind spirit was a good enough affirmation because she laughed again. The wind spirit, who thought itself incapable of feeling anything but simple goodwill, was taken away in the sound for a moment. Good, good. I like you. To our companionship then. She clinked her glass against the wind spirit, who was unable to drink, but she probably understood that and was only after the pure theatrics of such, and brought the rim to her lips, draining the whole thing. I have to warn you though, I'm not much of a fighter, unfortunately. I suppose not all of us can be perfect, right? Her gaze was drawn away to the counter. There was no one there, but she stared so hard there ought to have been someone. I have a friend who's a lot more of a fighter than I am, she explained, as if that answered everything. He would be better suited for, less well behaved activities such as this. It's a shame I should have brought him along. You'll be just fine with my lone support, won't you? The wind spirit didn't have a voice of its own, nor distinct thoughts, but the woman thought it fine enough. Wonderful. I do so love your kind. I mean no offense, but humans are a little tiring sometimes. I wouldn't sacrifice them for anything though. As for how to help, I do have some ideas. No. The others are a little too far-fetched. Just the one in that case. And then, for the first time, she pulled down the hood of her cloak, smiling at the little wind sprite with warm eyes. What do you think of becoming an Archon? It's definitely possible. As you are now, I'm afraid you can't move too many mountains or shape too many rivers. But if you became an Archon, you can stand a fighting chance. This was not a decision to be making lightly. This was not the decision afforded to most people anyway, but the wind spirit was not people, and certainly didn't have the capacity to deeply think through every decision. Not yet, at least. Which was why it didn't take long before the woman had her response and looked positively thrilled. See? And more said I wouldn't get anything done. This will be our contract, little wind spirit. I'll help you achieve the goal you seek. So show me how beautiful Mondstadt can be outside of this place. She held out her hands and cupped them in front of her. Within moments, the wind spirit understood what she meant and floated down to sit in her palms. All archons require some sort of faith. Not to worry. I have connections outside of here. But You will need a name, won't you? You won't oppose to me giving you one. A name. The wind spirit didn't have anything like that. The woman only nodded meaningfully, responding to the words that didn't exist. Names are careful things, little one. For us who aren't human, they create the basis for who we are. I won't take this lightly, but gods go by many names. Don't feel like you have to stick with this one, okay? Trust. Was that what it was? Such a feeling was unique, but it felt good. Her smile and her touch were different from its friend, but they had the same gentleness. Hmm, this is a first for me too. How about Barbados? Free as the winds outside of this place. In that moment, the wind spirit received both a name and something else, as if added to his consciousness. He felt things, great things, sad things, and understood the weight of human thought processes. Archons, it seemed, no matter their origins, always resembled humans. Or perhaps the humans resembled them. But whatever the case, it was human emotion that suddenly weighed down the heart he didn't have. Such was his suddenly adjustment to the creation of Barbados that the woman only waited, holding him with hands that didn't waver. Take your time adjusting, she said, patient as time. And then I suppose I really should get going if I'm to make good on our contract. Oh, isn't it so exciting? I can see why he likes making them so much. It really does give you something to do and within a time limit. So, no procrastinating. I don't suppose I'm talking too much to you, am I? Sorry, it really does get a little bit boring having no conversational partner. I'm okay. And you've got proper train of thoughts now. I will be honest with you. Regarding general language with those that can verbalize or focus those thoughts into words is not something I'm very good at. I really will have to practice. Ah, I haven't introduced myself properly yet, hmm? Barbados took that as his cue, and when he finally floated out of her hands, she dusted off her cloak and smiled pleasantly as sunshine. I am an Archon, goddess of traveling and travelers, and adventurers. I suppose those are under my jurisdictions as well. But you should focus on the traveling part, and the name. I have many. You've come to me for help, so I suppose you're dealing with me as YN, the Archon. It's nice to meet you. Thank you. Polite, aren't you? She gushed. Will I be passed down as a legend in the future? I hope so. I'll have to go get to work in that case, so we have a future to think of. There is a clan settled outside, the Gunhilder, who I've got some connections with. If all works out, you should be able to tell once it works. I'll see you then. She looked positively joyful for someone planning a rebellion. The second drink she had ordered still sat on a counter untouched. Barbados floated closer to that drink, peering into the clear surface. He wasn't able to drink, but he suspected she knew as much and had just ordered just for appearance's sake. Oh, yes, I do happen to be particularly fond of drinking, you explained. Mondstadt before its current state had some very good vintages. I still do like the drinks though. Maybe next time I'll have to ask for dandelion wine. And you can't exactly drink, can you? It's a shame. Perhaps next time you'll be able to join these things with me. She gingerly picked up his glass and drank it all in one gulp, settling down the emptied glass with remarkable grace for someone who was beginning to cultivate the image of a drunkard. No sense in wasting that, even if I had it out for show. Until next we meet, my dear Barbados. She was gone as soon as she appeared, slipping out of the door into the dark. When he followed to see where she'd go, there was no sign of a woman in a cloak slinging around the shadows, only empty streets lit up by the moon. Did the people outside the city see the same moon? Wondered Barbados. Or did the moon Y and C look more beautiful? What Wyan could see, he wanted his friends to see. He didn't wait too long in the dark, and eventually he returned to the same three people he trusted with his life. In 1 week, he could slowly feel a trickling of energy throughout himself. In 2 weeks, Wyan appeared right at his bard's friend's residence, just as dashing in broad daylight as under the dim lights of the bar. "Hello," she said, and Kurt sighed in a practiced fashion. "Just dropping by. I've completed my part now, so I'm letting you know you can do the same." She left right after, leaving his friends to stare after a slip of woman trailing away in the bustle of people crowded in the same street in the same city. And the rest, as the humans love to say, was history. The next time he saw her was after his establishment as the Animo Archon. Two of his three friends had since perished in want for their freedom. Perhaps the greatest comfort to them was the clear sky they saw as a reward for their efforts. Their tyrant burning love, twisted as it was no more. Mondstadt has changed from its cold barren landscape to a gentle rollicking hills and green as far as the eye could see. Touting a small traveler's bag, she tapped his shoulder and smiled when she saw him. "You certainly have changed, my dear Barbatos. I certainly am sorry for your loss. Freedom does not come so easy, but its price never ceases to cut hard." He had since learned that same smile, however, so he returned the expression. "Don't worry, your help was invaluable, and I never did get the chance to thank you. How should I repay you for that?" Wyan's smile seemed to grow until it was beyond human capability. "Goodness, you've only gotten cuter. Don't worry about repaying me. Actually, come here. I have already done some exploring." It was after saying this that she quickly reached into her bag and pulled out a bundle of white flowers. "And I found this at one of those mountains you have so many of. Aren't they beautiful? Here, take them. I have a bunch." How could he not know the flowers he had created and let prosper himself? Still, he owed such a debt to you, an insurmountable one that would take lifetime to repay. So he took the flowers and looked just as pleased to receive them as anyone would. "This is beautiful. Thank you." "Isn't it?" she gushed. "Will you be staying here? I'll have to bring you all the flowers from Inazuma and Liyue in that case. But I'm quite adept at carrying flowers. Don't worry. I hear they've got some wonderful flowers growing in Snezhnaya too, underneath all those frosts." "Leaving so soon?" She laughed, uncontained by attachments. That was the life of an Archon for you, especially one presiding over travels, always on her feet. "You know me. Nothing can contain me. Not the Caribbean. And not you, sweet as you are." As if to prove a point, she pinched his cheeks, quickly and affectionate. "Will you be sad to see me go?" "I know you'll be back," he replied with a wink. "After all, don't you love the wine here?" Within moments, Wyan had brightened up. One more, eyes gleaming. "Oh, don't tease me. You've got that up going now?" "Of course. Won't you accompany me for a drink?" "Oh, gladly." Truth be told, he still hadn't gotten used to the taste of alcohol yet. It was bitter in some places, too warm in others. But he owed her much more than a drink. So he had led her to the best tavern open and had their best dandelion brought out. She took her time leisurely drinking, cheeks warm and eyes soft as she spoke to him, describing the places she had been. It sounded wonderfully fun, being able to traverse the world with no concerns and nothing but a bag of trinkets. Leah is still developing their cuisine, but it's coming along wonderfully, she was saying. "I was at Fontaine for a while too, and they've got the most wonderful pastries. Sumer's got interesting food too, but I suppose I'm much more fond of the Liyue these days. And Mondstadt, now that you are here." "In that case, you should stay longer." She nodded, thinking deeply. I really should. We may have only talked that one time, but we're Archons. Our friendship lasts thousands of years. As do our rivalries. I'm sure we'll be the best of friends within the next centuries or two, my dear Barbados. Speaking of, how is that name treating you? Regretting your naming decision? He asked by way of teasing her. Hardly, unless you are. Then I might be. I hope you're not. It was a name gifted to him. It was hard to hate something like that, which had given him the power to help his dearest friend grasp her freedom. I would never. Thank you for helping me even when you didn't have to. Freedom is a beautiful ideal, she replied, raising her glass. And I'm glad you had that which you sought. But enough of that. We've got lot of millenniums ahead of us, so let's get comfortable while we can. To Mondstadt. He cheered right alongside her and clinked their mugs together. She took a long drink as he did, and when his dandelion one went down, something warm spread in his stomach. Next to him, she smiled to him, so sweet he swore it could have been that sweetness he tasted instead of the wine. Beautiful, that was the word, the sort of beauty that would topple nations. He wanted to behold such beauty in his eyes forever. The same kind of forever he was just now starting to learn as an immortal. May your peace be everlasting, she told him, rising to her feet, but not before throwing her arms around his shoulders warmly. And until we meet again, my dear Barbados.